North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. What do? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We make commentary, which is not the news. The commentary is opinion, yours and mine. And so we debate. Two ways to do it. You can join us on the chat room on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. I don't know. I may be up on YouTube. I do not know. But if you could go to YouTube and check it out, I sure would appreciate it. I put YouTube back in the mix after being censored by that website. This broadcast was censored by that website. And I was feeling like, boy, that's a bit of bullying, this is a small operation, as you can see. And I found it very interesting that YouTube would stomp all over me for what was opinion, protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution, and the reporting, which is protected also by the First Amendment of the Constitution. And the way this show is structured, they don't have any complaints. I'm talking about YouTube here. And I was really feeling like I felt like I was put upon. And then what ended up happening was CNN was censored by YouTube. CNN censored by YouTube. What happened yesterday was an opportunity for us to listen to Donald Trump in a town hall meeting on CNN, which was a triumph for Trump and a disaster for CNN, at least from a standpoint of how they want to impress their buddies when it comes to reporting the news, or what is purported to be the news, but is actually propaganda. And so, good morning, Martha. Anyway, if somebody could go over to YouTube and see if you can bring up the Wells Report, I sure would appreciate it, because theoretically we are broadcasting live. You'll also notice a certain different look of the show because the software that I used to produce it decided that that they didn't need to keep working with me, and so I don't know why that happened. But what was the outcome of that was I had to rebuild all of this stuff yesterday as we fumbled around trying to find the video that we eventually found on Rumble. Normally, YouTube handles that kind of stuff, but YouTube is in a draconian censorship phase, and so as we watch whatever it is that they think they should be doing for the sake of the United States. By the way, a hint: censorship is not it. We just have to be patient. Now, obviously, YouTube is unreliable. Obviously, YouTube is not just biased, but is totalitarian. And so, how's it going, Ray? Anyway, so what we have is we have this very odd circumstance that is leading us to come up with more reliable sources for transmission of this broadcast. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch that I am aware of. By the way, if you were watching on Rumble and Patreon, you'll note that we didn't have a show up there yesterday because it was kind of a calliope, a cataclysmic calliope of silliness, as I started trying to find what should be in the public domain, which is a complete video of Donald Trump's CNN town hall. And it was not available anywhere. Not available on CNN. Not available. I mean, CNN did it. They didn't have it. Now, to be fair, CNN did have an audio version of it, but I don't know that you wanted to see me sitting here on this camera listening to the town hall meeting just in audio only, me going like this for about an hour and a half. Well, it was actually an hour and 70 minutes. It was supposed to be an hour and 90 minutes. It was supposed to be 90 minutes. But it was cut 20 minutes short because CNN couldn't stand the pain any longer. But I didn't think you wanted to see me go, yeah. So what I ended up doing was trying to find the video. I found it thanks to Modern Renaissance Man. I don't know what his podcast is all about, but I do know that this guy is chasing news, and he is also a constitutional devotee. So Modern Renaissance Man, I have not had a chance to get in touch with him, but I will, because I want to talk to him a little bit about that. He put up the actual video from, and it was spotty. He put up the actual video from the town hall, and we borrowed some of it yesterday. Now I have some more of it, and probably in the second hour I'll play the first part which we missed, and just to sort of put the rest of the puzzle pieces together. So we are evolving. We are determining who the players are. We are determining who the totalitarian censors are. We are working our way through what we do best, which is report the news. And to that end, let's go to USA Today this morning. An emergency immigration restriction which allowed easier expulsion of migrants at the southern border, that's Title 42, ended last night at midnight. Yesterday, there were five car chases in the El Paso sector of the Texas-Mexico border. After more than 3 years, Title 42 going the way of all things, among most experts, there is a surge of asylum seekers either on the way or flooding into the country as we speak. In an effort to not provide the media, the willing media, as opposed to the mainstream media, to cover the story of gross overcrowding down at that border, they decided what they would do is they would release the people as they came in order to keep that overcrowding down. So not because of a humanitarian gesture, but because of a media/political one. And they were planning on doing what Governor Greg Abbott has been doing, which is basically farm out all these people around the country. Well, a federal judge has decided that that is not going to happen. And so they're going to have to keep all those people down there. And for the last 3 days, 10,000 people have landed in Texas alone. Texas alone, 10,000 people per day. And they're coming here to try to evade what they see as a lousy life in their home countries. So getting back to the USA Today article, the controversial Title 42 program had been tied to the federal public health emergency for COVID-19 that also expired at the end of May. Now, a lot of people were trying to figure out why it was that President Biden decided to go ahead and end the COVID-19 menace. The actual menace was a collection of politicians that suspended the Constitution, but that's another discussion. So you tried to figure out why he did that. Well, this is why he did that. He wants those people in the country and settled just in time for the 2024 elections. That's what he's looking to do. The Biden administration was blocked by the Supreme Court from ending the Trump-era Title 42 policy. They've been preparing for the change for nearly 2 years, and whatever preparation they made seems to be insufficient as you hear this. There's a lot of scrambling going on. Yesterday, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said that this was going to take some time to get fully implemented. Instead of using Title 42, which admittedly is not the right law to keep people out of the country, they are switching to Title 8. Title 8 requires a lot more paperwork, a lot more administrative work, and that's why, ostensibly, this is the way the story goes, 1,500 U.S. Army active personnel were sent down to the border to augment the Texas National Guard, the Arizona National Guard, the California National Guard, etc. The National Guard guys are essentially state troops until they're federalized. Now these are federal troops coming in. And from what we understand down on the border, from what we're hearing, it's going to be a while. And a lot of people are going to find their way into the interior of the United States illegally. And gosh knows how long it's going to be before we're able to get those people out of this nation, or at least out of the nation, or indeed given visas to begin their new life in this nation. The Biden administration, blocked by the Supreme Court, had 2 years to get this done. Not so much. President Biden acknowledged Tuesday of this week the border is going to be chaotic for a while. Why? Why is the border chaotic? Thousands of migrants have been waiting in Mexico for the restriction to end. That's thousands of migrants have been waiting in Mexico for the restriction to end. I just sort of turned that into one word. For the restriction. Border communities say crossings have dramatically increased. Republicans, now even Democrats, are accusing the administration of not being prepared. Biden said his team has done everything it can despite getting half the funding it requested from Congress. It will take time for the new approach to work. All the money that is necessary to close the border of the United States between Mexico and ourselves is already available. This is intellectual dishonesty sustained by USA Today and the rest of the mainstream media. There is something else that is being sustained by the mainstream media, and that is absolutely intellectually bankrupt. And that is this: the brave words that this country was built by immigrants. That is not true. Not in any way, shape, or form. This country was built by legal immigrants. They had a process to come to the United States. They had to have a sponsor here. They had to have a job waiting for them. They had to have proper paperwork and background clearances from their originating country. They had to show up ready to be Americans. These people aren't ready. Most don't speak the language. Most don't have jobs. Most don't have what they need to succeed in America at all. All they know is that their home country is just simply not worth living in, and so they're coming to the United States. And I suppose that if I was living in one of those countries in Central America, I'd think about it too. But then again, you know me. You know me. Uh, so funny. I got a text from Mr. Love who's trying to derail the conversation. I don't have any idea why. Anyway, the way this works is our border, according to the authorities of the Biden administration, our border is secure. Do you believe that? 817 379 2172. 817 379 2172. That's our telephone number. Our nation is changing at a pace never seen. That pace being the speed of immigrants crashing the border, illegal immigrants at that, coming to the United States. And by the way, if you're thinking that this is just a problem of the evil Democrats, the Republicans haven't done anything about the border either. Well, except for one. Except for one. And that was Donald Trump, who said that he was going to fix the border if he was given another chance. So, do you believe the border is secure? Alejandro Mayorkas, President Joe Biden, everybody says it is. Do you agree? This is the Wells Report. Look, we're going to fade to black. I don't have all the tools I need, so I'm going to fade to black until this comes back. If you're on the chat room, please, by all means, I'm trying to put up a slide here. Please, by all means, just hang in there because I'll have something for you to watch very soon. But right now, just tell everybody that I will be back in approximately 3 minutes and 40 seconds. See, I'm back. I'm working on a slide that has a countdown because the countdowns that I had, well, they broke. So there you go. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks, sir. No, I did not go offline. Synchronize your watches. Yeah, indeed. See how many people did I lose? A couple. I got to figure out a better way to do this. The great James Parker put those countdown timers that you've been seeing. But yesterday, while I was working through trying to find a live stream video of Donald Trump from the town hall meeting on CNN, which was unsuccessful until I realized, wait a minute, Rumble is a free speech outlet. Let's go to Rumble because YouTube certainly isn't. By the way, has anybody been able to find me on YouTube? Because I had a problem with YouTube. They suspended this broadcast for a couple of weeks because they didn't like a conversation I was having about the border, which, by the way, is protected by the First Amendment. I really don't have any idea what these people are trying to get done, but let's just say I need somebody to go over to YouTube and see if they can bring up the Wells Report. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on here. What's going on here? I'm sorry. These are very amusing chats that are coming up. Title 42 expired last night. Title 42 expired last night. There is an onslaught at the border. And I'm looking at the chat room to see what you think about it. And yes, I am live on YouTube. Oh, well, don't know how long that's going to last, but let's enjoy it while we enjoy it, okay? Can't post messages to some channels. Learn more. Let's see. YouTube events I'm on. That's strange. Yeah, and I've got some work to do on Facebook. Apparently, the public pages you are able to post on, but for whatever reason, there are some others that you can't. And I'm trying to work on that too. It has something to do with public privacy or public checking off the public box or the private box. And I've never checked off the private box ever. All right, so let's go. Migrants just found out the mat can be pulled at any moment. Yes, but will it ever do that? Says LM Valiant. Gary Olivier. President Biden's handlers are doing this. The sock puppet president is an idiot, always was. And says, looking at the ages of most of the invaders, it makes me wonder why they are not taking their own countries back. See, that's one of the greatest tragedies of all of this. Think about the people that are coming here. These are people that reject totalitarian socialist rule because that's what's pervasive in Central America and elsewhere. And so they come here. This is not good for us because they're coming here illegally. It is not good for them because they don't have any visible means of support and are casting themselves into this leap of faith that the American people will give them food, water, shelter, etc., until they do get on their feet. They are people who think a lot like us. They reject totalitarian rule. They are interested in prosperity for themselves and their family. And so they're coming here. And the political process, for some strange reason, wants to redemography the United States of America. And that's not something that we're going to tolerate. So when we have all this, when we put all this stuff right in front of us, what's hurting the countries they leave, these industrious, independent-minded people are leaving those countries, creating brain drain for those countries. So it's worse for the country. They lose all their workers. Yes, we gain workers, but that's not what we're looking for right now. What we're looking for is people to join the United States experience, that is, these people being good folk who simply want to make a better living. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. So here's what I'd like to know. Until I get these slides running, do you want to look at me or do you want to look at blackness? I think you want to look at me. Is that right? Poor people. How does that, what do you think about that? Somebody reach out to me on the chat. YouTube is functioning. Isn't that strange? But I don't think anybody can send me, a chat. I don't know what's going on, but if you are watching on YouTube, it's great to be back. We were suspended for a time. I don't know exactly, according to my calculations, we had another week of suspension. I don't know whether YouTube has relented. I don't know what the situation is. Helen Valiant says, we'd rather look at Fade to Black. We'd rather look at this, JD. Yeah, we want to look at this. Right. Hey, oh, wow. Mike Renouille is on YouTube chat. How interesting. I wonder what YouTube is thinking. They suspended me for 2 weeks a week ago. Do they have the same problem with calendars and math that I do? I don't understand. All right, what I'm doing here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to show it to you. Actually, I can't. And the reason I can't do it is because I'm doing it on the computer that you're watching. I'm trying to come up with a countdown clock. But I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, I have a pretty good little slide here. But I'm not sure how to start the timer. And I don't know how that. I'm still, like I said, what you take for granted at the outset of doing radio is you take for granted the infrastructure that you work with and don't think much about, right? And I'm having to build all that infrastructure that I used to take for granted. You'll note that I do not take it for granted any longer. So let's see here. Let me see if I can get this a little smaller and then relocate it. Okay, let's go up here. And then let's do this again. And then let's go up here. Oh, okay, good. I have to make that just a little bigger. I'd like to make these numbers a little smaller because it's sort of like hitting you over the head with them. But there you go. All right, so now how do I reset the time? And how do I get it to count down? Let's double click it. No. Reload. All right. Pin controls when stopped. Break time for PowerPoint by Flow Simulation Limited. Well, this seems to be what I need. Oh. Okay. Let's see, reload. Now, let's see. Okay. Yeah, once again, this is the infrastructure that I'm not aware of. But this is kind of cool, actually. If I can get it to work, it's going to look a little bit better than the old ones. Let's see, reload. Okay. Let's see. How do I do a background? How do I do a background on a slide in PowerPoint? We'll just have to figure this out. It looks good, though. It really does. Really looks good. And it'll look even better if I can get it to the way I want it. And hopefully that'll happen soon. North to south. Coast to coast, around the world, news, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We are going through the news coverage this morning of Title 42 coming to a screeching halt. We talked a little bit about USA Today and what they covered as a matter of course this morning. This is the Fox News version. The Department of Homeland Security released a statement at midnight tonight as the Title 42 public health order expired, affirming the U.S.-Mexico border remains secure and that Border Patrol agents will resume the authorized removal of migrants. The border is not open, said DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, starting tonight. People who arrive at the border without using a lawful pathway will be presumed ineligible for asylum. He added, we have 24,000 Border Patrol agents and officers at the southwest border and have surged thousands of troops and contractors and over 1,000 asylum officers to help enforce our laws. Do not believe the lies of smugglers. What about the lies of politicians? Should we believe those? See, that's a question that Mayorkas should have been asked in the press conference yesterday. Don't believe the lies of the smugglers? Oh, okay. Whatever you say, Mr. Secretary. Crying out loud. God, this just drives me nuts. That's just a personal opinion. Mayorkas cautioned violators would face tougher consequences as the Biden administration looks to combat the ongoing migrant crisis, which they created themselves. They've had 2 years to figure this out. People who do not use available lawful pathways to enter the U.S. now face tougher consequences, including a minimum 5-year ban on reentry and potential criminal prosecution. Let's talk a little bit about all the families that were very heartened to know that the drunk driver who was an illegal immigrant who ran over one of their children got deported. And then, of course, returned a few years later to murder somebody in our neighborhoods. Yeah, I'm sure that they are absolutely heartened by Secretary Mayorkas saying, oh my goodness gracious, they'll face a 5-year minimum ban on coming back to the United States. You mean coming back to the wide open border of the United States? Look, that's just my opinion. It's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. As for migrants currently in the country, Mayorkas said DHS and its partners stand ready to humanely process and remove people without a legal basis to remain in the U.S. I'll believe it when I see it. Mayorkas' warning comes as Border Patrol agents made another 10,000 migrant apprehensions day before yesterday, the third day in a row. Isn't that ridiculous? The statement comes after a federal judge blocked the Biden administration from implementing a policy that would have allowed immigration officials to release migrants currently in custody. The policy was announced to clear immigration holding facilities to avoid overcrowding ahead of the Title 42 expiration, which was expected to bring a surge of migrants to the border. In his decision, Judge T. Kent Wetherill II imposed a 2-week restraining order on the policy. The policy was outlined in a Border Patrol memo, which said the migrants can be allowed into the country on parole if CBP faces overcrowding. They have overcrowding there right now. In other words, this is an amnesty program. That's what this is. Unbelievable. Earlier yesterday, Mayorkas spoke at the White House. Let me try this again. Earlier Thursday, Mayorkas spoke at the White House where he cautioned the country could see a brief rise in the number of migrant encounters at the border. Sort of like transitory inflation, I imagine. We expected to see large numbers of encounters initially. We are already seeing high numbers of encounters in certain sectors, just the ones on the U.S.-Mexico border. This places an incredible strain on our personnel, our facilities, and our communities with whom we partner closely. Go ahead and ask the border mayors in Texas whether or not the DHS is working with them closely. Yeah, they're working with them closely. Here's the way the work looks. All right. The way the work looks is, okay, we're going to inundate your city for years. And we're going to call you a bigot if you disagree. There. Simple, easy to understand, very straightforward. Right. Anyway, let's see. The place is an incredible strain on our personnel. It will take time for those results that they have been working 2 years on. It will take time for those results to be fully realized. It's essential that we all take this into account. No, it's not. What's essential to take into account is that a government that has spent us into a $3.7 trillion national debt can't keep people out of the country from a standpoint of a secure border. Just can't do it. We don't have to sit back and say, well, we got to give them some time. Let's give them some time to get their crap together. You can close the border of Mexico and the United States in 8 hours. It's not that difficult. But of course, we don't want to do that because it backs over all kinds of stated Democrat policy and Republican policy too. But Republicans don't state it. They stand in the background, not saying anything, just working their ulterior magic and allowing the Democrat Party to move forward with their immigration agenda. Neither side gets together to actually fix it. Especially when it comes to immigration, illegal immigration into this country. Politics loves a problem but hates a solution. There's an election coming up. We, the people of the United States, simply must do better with our votes. We must. All right, let's see. What about an hourglass or a metronome? Play some music that's open source. I've got all that stuff. Yeah, I'm working on that too. LM Valiant says, no, don't use Fade to Black. How about Gunmetal Gray? Really? Fade to Gunmetal Gray. No. Hey, JD, this is a chat. Yeah, we're back on YouTube for something, for some reason. I don't know how. But that's good. And I'm glad you're wearing the shirt, Mr. Olivier. That's awfully nice of you. So, what do you think here? The Biden administration had 2 years to figure this out. They apparently did figure out something, and it is currently being put in place. The question is, will it work? And they say it's going to be chaotic and it won't work for a while. Well, why is that? You, the government of the United States, the federal government of the United States, have all the border states to be able to look at what they do that works and what doesn't work. And the intervention of the Texas Military Department, ordered by the governor of the state of Texas, was something that you can do too. Well, we sent 1,500 troops. No. 15,000? Yeah, maybe. But 1,500? No, what you're trying to do is you're just trying to keep the conversation from getting out of control. That's what you're trying to do. And guess what? Nobody believes you're here. No one believes it. Now there's another convenient dodge. And this is also instructive from a political standpoint. What you have to see, and I think that's the wrong language. What I would hope that you would see is the fact that Democrats stand up in front of video cameras and microphones all the time and say the Republicans are stopping comprehensive immigration reform. And the Republicans you'd expect to come back with, we are certainly not. We're waiting for a reasonable deal. We're waiting to negotiate a reasonable deal for Ellis Island style immigration to the United States. That's what we're waiting for. But they don't say that. They just sit back in the background in an ulterior basis and say, well, that's just not true. Well, okay, it's not true. What is true then? Well, What the Democrats are saying, just not true about the Republican Party. What is true? Like I said, the Democrat Party just would rather demagogue the issue instead of getting down to work. Instead of saying, the Democrat Party is wrong, we have a plan, here it is. Now, they'll do that with the debt ceiling. They did it yesterday. They will. Now, they're trying to codify, Title 42. The problem with that is it's not going to be, they're not going to be able to codify. In other words, write legislation to either support or replace Title 42. They're not going to be able to do it. And the reason they're not going to be able to do it is because, well, it's a completely different law. Title 42 is not the right law to keep people out of the country. The reason it's not is because it's about saying, okay, you have to stay outside the United States until you prove you don't have COVID. And that ostensibly is not correct. That's not a law that you can actually enforce. Although it was enforced to a degree. Remember, we've had this constant onslaught of people coming across the border for years. Long before COVID. Long before Title 42. Once again, the Republican Party, when they had a chance, didn't close the border. They talked about it, but they didn't do it. And of course, when the Democrat Party took over the Washington political process, they wanted open border, and they did it. And they have it. And they've also thrown in, for good measure, the greasy assurances that everything's fine. This is going to take a while. It'll be chaotic for a couple of days. But everything's going to be just fine. Yeah, just relax. Don't say everything that you've been saying for the last 20 years and focus it on us. Just give us time. Should be 2-3 years tops. Right. Let's see what else we got going on here in the chat room. There are a lot of people that are talking about this. Show me, don't tell me. Oh, it'll take time. The government doesn't have money. Yeah, the government doesn't have money? Are you flipping kidding? Isaac Tate is checking in on YouTube. Thanks, Isaac. Great to see you again. Let's see. Consequences, really? Yeah, there are not going to be any consequences. There aren't any consequences, even for people who are deported. They come right back just in time to shoot up their neighbors. That's wonderful. Gary says, smoke and mirrors 1,500. To do what? Help the illegal alien invaders get in? Well, there's some disturbing news articles about that. Ann says, tanks would work better. Sorry, I forgot. We sent ours to Ukraine to protect their borders. Ann says, also horse hockey. I don't know what she's horse hockeying, but she may have been responding to something that I said. Horse hockey, enforce our current law. Yeah, by all means. We have to do something different. This is not working. And this plan to use a completely different title that requires more paperwork is simply a way to try to slow the onslaught. In the meantime, these people are finding their way into this country through a wide open border because we were not going to build one more inch of wall in this country, says Joe Biden. We're not going to build one more inch of wall. Well, except for the 20 miles of wall that we built in Arizona to help Mark Kelly get reelected. Senator Mark Kelly, we talked about it. Yeah, we built that to get him reelected. And nobody, of course, reported it because the mainstream media is the lapdog of the Democrat Party. Yeah. Pretty sure there are still tanks at Fort Hood. Yeah, there are plenty of tanks at Fort Hood, but it's not Fort Hood anymore. Did you know that? They officially changed the name of Fort Hood. Let's see. Fort Hood name change. Let's see here. Yes. It is now Fort Cavazos. Richard Cavazos, a general He was a Texas-born Mexican-American, the first Latino four-star general. There is no better namesake for our installation than Richard E. Cavazos, said General Sean Burnaby, commanding general of the 3rd Armor Corps, headquartered at Fort Cavazos. Let his name and all that he represents inspire us all every day to live up to his legacy as a warrior, as a soldier, as a master trainer, as a military innovator, a coach, a mentor, and a humble servant leader. So it's now Fort Cavazos, not Fort Hood. Except if you ask anybody who is actually stationed there and anybody who has actually been stationed there. Strangely enough, they still call it Fort Hood. We'll see. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in a moment. Huh. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. We were just talking about the renaming of Fort Hood to Fort Cavazos. I have no problem with Fort Cavazos. I have no problem with the name change. I don't. The Army has the purvey of changing names as they see fit. There are a lot of people that feel otherwise. Fort Hood has a rich heritage that goes back to the Civil War. General Hood, by the way, was a Confederate general, and there was an awful lot of that. And whether or not that actually, I mean, we wouldn't necessarily. Let's see. Let me think of a good one. Would we say, for example, name one of our military bases after Generalissimo Franco, the former military dictator of Spain. We wouldn't have a Fort Franco anywhere. And like it or not, the Confederacy was an attempt to destroy the nation, at least to some level. And that military command saw fit to honor Confederate generals was always something that was curious to me. Now, on the other hand, there's a rich tradition, Fort Bragg, another Confederate general, etc. It's one of those things. It is American history. Mike says it is American history, whether you like it or not. True, it is American history. But should we celebrate the greatness of America as opposed to a moment when America was brought to its knees? Now, just understand that when these forts were named, this was a very different country. This was a very different country. The politics of the time wanted to memorialize the defeated Confederacy. And so they did. Now, say what you want, but those people that point out that it seems odd that Confederate generals would be honored with the naming of famous military outposts, well, that did seem a little bit strange to me, and it always has. Let's get back to the chat room here. But Mike, you make a great point. It is American history, whether you agree with it or not. Immigrants are not illegal invaders. The bullcorn that is illegal invaders, immigrants are not illegal invaders, she says. Wait a minute. This bullcorn is illegal invaders, and I damn sure would use tanks just as I would use weapons against a natural-born citizen invading my house. Right. Okay. Yeah, people around the area are not going to fall in lockstep with the government. True. Mike says, yeah, tanks on the border at the very least. Yeah, there was a successful inoculation against actually doing that. And that was, we don't want to militarize the border. Yes, we do. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to dictate military policy or even espouse for a military policy or not. What I espouse is a closed border by any means necessary. Close the border. We have international ports of entry for a reason. If these people want to enter the United States, they can. Legally. There are laws on the books to make that happen. So, yeah, I think we covered that, Isaac. Thanks very much for the commentary. Or at least Bradley fighting vehicles. Well, you really don't need fighting vehicles. What you really need are what we did in Operation Strong Safety. And once again, whenever I point out the Texas Military Department or my service as a Texas State Guardsman, anything I say, it's just my opinion. It has nothing to do with the official policy of the Texas Military Department or the Texas State Guard, just so you know. What I want to make sure of is that you understand that you can put observation posts within sight of each other. We've done it before with armed soldiers on the border, stopping people from coming across. That is something that can and should be done, in my personal opinion. We've done it before. We can do it again here in Texas. Why isn't the federal government doing it? The Constitution is plain. The Constitution is plain on this. You will have, I just got, no. Okay, somebody, a dear friend of mine just said this. Let me go and find this so that you know what's going on here. Don't tell me that you agree with the whitewashing of history by removing Confederate statues. I do not. In fact, I have absolutely defended Confederate statues in Texas and will continue to do so. What I was pointing out was it seems very odd that we would name military outposts for people that were, at the time, enemies of the country. We don't have a Fort Rommel anywhere, do we? No. Do we have a Fort Yamamoto anywhere? And Yamamoto, by the way, went to Harvard. Do we have any of those? No. No. Do we have statues of Yamamoto? I'm pretty sure you can probably find a statue of Yamamoto around here someplace. Do I believe it should be pushed over? No. No, I don't. So, yeah, this is just make sure that what you're getting out of this is what I'm actually saying as opposed to what you think I'm saying. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with hour number 2 in just a moment. Let's see here. Thank you, Dirk. That was funny. That was good. I think I've got something here. Let me put this together for just a minute. See, I want to put this up. Then I want to hit export. I know it's here someplace. I want to export it. Let's see, maybe a save as. Oh, here it is. Export as not an MP4. Let's try a JPEG. Yeah, export. Okay. Folder users, desktop, TWR slide 1. Okay. Copy. All right. So let's close this. Close. Hello. Quit PowerPoint. Thank you. Jesus. I just want to quit my PowerPoint now. Thank you very much. It won't let me quit. All right. Let me get rid of it this way. Can't do that either. Okay. All right. PowerPoint, quit. PowerPoint. All right. Now let's go here. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to come up with a slide for you. So that you have something so that I can go and do some essential business. Let's see here. I want to go to documents. No, I want to go to yes, I know my mic is still on. Yes. I'm mumbling to myself because for some reason people used to like it when I mumbled like this. And that's why we came up with these drops and so on. And let me see, am I looking at the right microphone? Yeah. That's why we came up with the drops and everything. Yeah. So yeah, my mic is still on. And I'm just promising not to say anything really stupid. How do I get to users here? Let's go to users. Let me put this up so I can see it. Paste. Users, John David Wells, desktop, slide 1. Oh, okay. It's on the desktop. All right. Let's see what we got here. That's the PowerPoint. Where is the JPEG? All right. Let's try this. Oh, what did I just do? What did I just freaking do? What do you mean too late? Oh, good. I didn't screw that up. What do you mean too late? Explain. Explain. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Finder. New Finder window. Desktop. Where's desktop documents? Okay. Well, that's really helpful. That's what that is. Where is the man? Let's see. Creative Cloud downloads. Okay. That's not it. Oh, it's loading. I did. What did I say? What did I say? Yeah, we have one more minute, minute and 29 seconds. All right. Okay. All right, so we want an overlay. Slide one folder. Okay, there it is. Okay, let's see if this works. Ha 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 ha. All right. And I got it just in time for 44 seconds. That's awesome. That actually looks kind of cool. All right, so there you go. So now I'll be able to do something else during the breaks instead of babbling like a maniac. All right. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. What do? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We make commentary. That is opinion, yours and mine, and the basis for debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for having us on today. Title 42 is open. We are a border state. This broadcast originates from Texas. I am a Texas State Guardsman, and while nothing that I say when I discuss the Texas State Guard, of which I am a proud member, has anything to do with Texas Military Department policy or Texas State Guard policy, has nothing to do with it. It's just my humble opinion. I've been down at that border twice. I have 9 months of service on the border of the United States and Mexico in Texas. I'm proud of it. We have not hurt anyone. We have not created undue strife for the people that come to us. Indeed, their lives improve as soon as they make contact with us. However, that does not mean that they're not arriving here illegally and they should stop. It's absolutely something they should do. It's crazy stupidness that we don't have a secure border, and we do not. And so as we come to this particular portion of the Wells Report, we are expecting that indeed there will be chaos. That is what the president is saying, in fact. The Biden administration is telling Americans to prepare for a chaotic period at the southern border. The U.S. faces a potentially historic migrant surge at the border with the ending of Title 42, which happened last night at midnight. Officials say that it will be a while before the plan to cope with the surge shows results. Title 42, the public health order that allows for the rapid expulsion of migrants at the southern border due to the COVID-19 pandemic, ended last night with the ending of the COVID-19 national emergency. In the days leading up to the order's end, agents have been encountering historic levels of over 10,000 migrants a day. Authorities already preparing for the release of migrants without court dates onto the streets of the United States of America. This is governmental misconduct. That's what this is. And the people that are committing this misconduct are the people that we voted into office. It all comes out, that the buck stops here in the United States. When it comes to the government that we have, the buck stops right there where you're sitting. The buck stops where I'm sitting. The buck stops because we keep putting the wrong people in office. It is outrageous. It is absolutely outrageous. And that we do it, that we allow it, is even more outrageous. And we better stop it. We are electing the wrong people. Stop electing professional politicians. People say, oh, we've just got to have term limits. We have to have term limits. And so, the American people have always had I get so upset about this. The American people have always had term limits. They're called elections. They're called elections. There are two ways you can do it. You can just vote the bums out. That's thing number one. Thing number two, you cannot vote for somebody who does not say, I am not going to do this job for more than 2, 4, 6 terms. And then you weigh that. That should be a question every journalist asks every national politician or candidate. How many terms do you believe you want to serve? If I was running for the Congress of the United States, if I was going to be a congressional representative, I would say 4 terms. 4 terms, 8 years, gone. That's what I would do. Frankly, I have other things to do. I'm trying to figure out just exactly why I want to go up there and deal with that show and immerse myself in this ever decaying, stinky, slimy swamp that substitutes for a federal government. But vote for those people. Vote for those people. Vote for your neighbors. Stop voting for professional politicians. Exercise your right to term limit politicians. So the Biden administration repeatedly touted a wide-ranging plan that includes stiffening Title VIII penalties, an asylum rule made to make those who illegally enter ineligible for asylum, cooperation with Mexico, and a surging of resources and personnel to the border. However, even with that in place, top administration officials, including the president, have painted a gloomy picture of what lies ahead in the coming days. It's going to be chaotic for a while, the president told reporters on Tuesday, while he was touting international cooperation with countries like Mexico. What cooperation? What cooperation do we have from Mexico? On Wednesday, he made similar remarks as he urged Congress to provide more funding. Well, we've had chaos at the border for a number of years. We have to fully fund the border security effort. We already have. It's called the defense budget. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas painted a similarly grim picture in the days leading up to the end of Title 42. Mayorkas has also appealed to Congress for more funding and an immigration reform package. I've said for months and months, the challenges at the border will be very difficult. And we have spoken repeatedly about the fact that difficulty may actually only increase at the time of transition. That's because you don't know what you're doing. Oh, yeah, Mr. Smarty Pants? Oh, yeah, Mr. Smarty Pants talk show podcast host? What is your plan? Okay, here's my plan. You ready? Surge 15,000 American troops down to the border. Augment them with the National Guard. Change the rules of engagement. No one will cross the United States border. Why should the people of the United States bear the brunt of chaos in the transition? No. We close the border. Let the people trying to break into our country deal with the chaos and confusion. Then, as the new Title VIII provisions come on board, then you can relax that if you choose to. You don't open the border and then say, well, it's going to be chaotic for a while. Well, the American people will just have to bear the brunt of it. No, you close the border and then implement Title VIII. And you open it slowly so that you can verify, smooth out, polish the procedures. The Remain in Mexico policy, okay, as far as I'm concerned, if necessary, should be enforced by the United States military. Close the border. Then move on with your Title VIII reforms, if that's what you think you should do. It's outrageous. Now, that tells you exactly what I just said. The people running the show are incompetent. Or they're evil. And that's what I found in the left. These anti-American postulations and law proposals and so on and so on. And these crimes that are committed by leftists. Just plain crime. You have to decide whether or not these people are incompetent or they're malevolent. That is the choice we are consistently being forced to make. Hillary Clinton didn't violate the Espionage Act 16 times. She was just stupid. Really? That's the story you're going with, FBI Director James Comey? Really? Yeah, I mean, Hunter Biden is not an arch criminal. He's just a helpless drug addict. Oh, okay. Who's rehabilitated himself? Sure. Is that malevolence or incompetence? And we keep having to make this choice in this nation. Well, I'm starting to believe it's malevolence. How about you? Is this calculation or incompetence? I'm not some far-flung man of letters that has been mandated by the people of my congressional district to go represent them in Washington, D.C. I'm a podcast host. I'm a radio personality. I can figure it out. Close the border first. Then implement Title VIII. Don't leave the border wide open while you attempt to implement Title VIII. And all these true believers that are down there implementing Title VIII, are they going to be, these are the people that actually agree with this onslaught of illegal immigration? If they're in a position where they have to work out the bugs, are they going to work out the bugs as quickly as they can? Or are they going to slow walk fixing the bugs in order to allow as many people as possible while they have the 2 years or less than 2 years to do it? Yeah, it's the latter. But if the border's closed and there is a reasoned implementation of Title VIII to replace Title 42, then the work will go much quicker. This is what I refer to on this broadcast when I say we got to be smarter than politics. We can be, because politics is stupid. The first thing that happens when people go into government service, not all people, but is what happens is their brains are removed. At least the ones that, the part of the brain that handles cogent thought. These are the issues. These are the problems. Close the border first. Implement Title VIII. Would anybody have a problem with it? Yeah, there would be some howling fringe leftist groups that said, you've militarized the border. And President Biden would say, yes. and it would be over. The mainstream media, as we've seen, covers Joe Biden's behind, not Joe Biden's actions. So if he said, yeah, we militarized the border, we closed it, we're going to implement Title VIII and get it open again as quickly as we can. The headline would be, President Biden comes up with a brilliant way of getting the border fixed. Oh, it's amazing. He's closing the border first and then implementing Title VIII. This is the kind of leadership that we, the American people, simply must have. Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, this guy is a giant. Oh, he's a giant, all right. You're listening to the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of minutes. Thanks very much for joining us for this Friday, May 12th, year of our Lord 2023. Back in a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. You can join us on the chat room, which is available to us. And once again, we're still working through some new mechanics here on the broadcast because of strange things that happened yesterday. I would like to thank the lords of YouTube for uncensoring the Wells Report. Thanks very much for putting us back on the air. I have a moment to comment about YouTube, and I want to make this abundantly clear, both to YouTube management and the YouTube community. This broadcast does not and will not trade in misinformation. We do not do that. We report the news. The way the broadcast is structured is similar to the Drudge Report. Matt Drudge does not go out and have worldwide news bureaus sending him news. What he does is he goes through the news and grabs important stuff and puts it up on his webpage, along with credit and URLs, in other words, web addresses. I do the same thing here. What I do is I go through the news and I present it. I present it from Fox News, CNN, USA Today, The Wall Street Journal, Politico, The Beast, The Daily Beast. We go through tens of papers and news sites for the news that we put on this broadcast. I report their news. We differentiate between what I think of that news and the news itself by virtue of various things. Like, for example, when I report the news here mostly. I point out bias here, and that can be called opinion, but it isn't. It's bias. I'm just pointing out bias here. But when I want to comment on a particular news portion of a particular news story, I switch to this camera, because I want there to be a clear delineation between news and opinion. To YouTube management, opinion is covered by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. And besides, it makes your channel better, not worse. It makes your channel better, not worse. This murky idea of community standards, look, there are easily understood community standards. None of them involve the quashing of somebody's opinion. By the way, you can trust me a little bit better than that. When things are inappropriate on any of my chat channels and so on, I administrate them benevolently and quickly. To YouTube management, the Wells Report is news. It is not some guy trying to mislead the people of the United States. Don't take us down again. It just hurts you. It just hurts you. Please stop. For all our sakes. This is the Wells Report. John David Wells with you. We'll be back coming up in just a couple of minutes as we take us through Friday. Yeah, only 2 more days left in the work week. Again, thanks very much for being with us. And like I said, we'll continue with the day's news next. When you turn your mic down, you have to turn it back up. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. This is the Friday edition. It's the 12th day of May. Yeah, it's the 12th day of May, 2023. There is interesting information regarding the President of the United States. The President of the United... It's allergy season. And I'm on antihistamines, and my mouth hasn't caught up yet. The President of the United States. See? Anyway, there are things circling him. Some of them have to do with how he got elected in the first place. And some of those things involve a letter signed by 51 theoretically former intelligence officers of the United States. That statement was regarding the Hunter Biden laptop, which for all intents and purposes was a story that was spiked by the mainstream media that came out just before the 2020 election. There are people who believe that had an effect on that election. And indeed, there are now pieces of information coming out about that. The other shark, if you will, that is circling the president has to do with his family's personal business dealings. And that is a perimeter, if you will, that is slowly closing around the president. Now, people have brought up on the chat room that the timing of this is very interesting, just in time for the 2024 election season. Well, this is just the first shot. It's going to get a lot worse. If you thought that the food fight between the parties coming up to the 2020 election, if you thought that was embarrassing and horrifying and outrageous, wait until you see this one. This is going to be ridiculous. Absolutely. Getting back to the Hunter Biden laptop, the information coming out is reported by Fox News as follows, by the way. Keep something in mind. Fox News is a biased news outlet. Bias is wrong, whether it's left bias or right bias. It is wrong. Just report the news. Just report the facts. We have a few in this story, but we also have bias. You know the part where I point out fact and bias? I just did it. A former top intelligence official with oversight of threats ahead of the 2020 election said the Central Intelligence Agency had no evidence at the time that the Hunter Biden laptop had anything to do with a Russian disinformation campaign, despite claims from then-candidate Joe Biden's allies. Just before the election, 51 former national security officials wrote a public letter claiming the Hunter Biden laptop had all the classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation operation. It was signed by former President Obama CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, and former CIA Director and Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. A personal note here. Leon Panetta is a Democrat. He is a professional. And that he took part in this was epically disappointing. For those of us who have watched his work over the years, in all of the capacities that he has served, this is a guy who has served America very well, right up to the point where he, like so many others, I would say the other 50 former national security officers, were poisoned by politics. It's sad that we have this conversation. It's sad that these stories are coming out. But this is something that we, the people of the United States, this is information we deserve to have. And not 2 years after the fact. We deserve and should have a more honest political process. I have put forward on this broadcast the need for the American people to look beyond the propagandist, politicized efforts of the news media to either make or break candidates that we vote for. The media is not an instrument of politics. The media is an instrument of information. We, make decisions about our candidates and our politics and our votes, not the mainstream media. And we have to stop them from doing this. But this warpage of news has become a celebration of propaganda. And we, the people, and I've said this, we must look beyond the propaganda for the fact. It's something we do on this broadcast every day. You should do it in your life every day, in my opinion. Just my opinion. Just because somebody says something, just because it's on the front page of the New York Times, just because it leads the news on CNN or Fox News or any of the other news websites, doesn't mean it's true. The greatness of the United States, one of the cornerstones of the greatness of the United States, is skepticism of public information, regardless of where that information comes from. It built this nation, that skepticism, and we need to embrace it yet again. In an interview with Fox News Digital, former National Security Officer for Cyber, Chris Porter, said that claims from Biden supporters did not reflect the actual intelligence. Quote, as the intelligence officer in charge of U.S. intelligence community analysis of foreign threats to U.S. elections in 2020, I was concerned at the time about this letter because it did not reflect our understanding of the threat. Yes, it looked like the kind of thing Moscow might do. But as our unclassified report to the public later indicated, despite an extensive influence campaign, there was no evidence that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. Quote, any politically scandalous information from a nebulous source might be consistent with their sponsorship, but it doesn't make it appropriate for senior officials to throw their weight into domestic politics by insinuation without clear and compelling evidence, unquote. Porter served as a CIA analyst for nearly a decade and worked as one of the most senior cyber intelligence analysts until 2022. Fox News Digital reported this week that former Deputy CIA Director Michael Morell, who worked to write the letter and get support from intelligence officials, sent a draft of the statement to the CIA Pre-Publication Classification Review Board, the PCRB, before making it public. Those people went around to these former national security officers and solicited their support of this letter, and indeed got it. Those were active duty CIA persons. That is the CIA taking part in domestic politics. The CIA has no business doing any business within the continental United States and, of course, Alaska and Hawaii and all the territories. The CIA is supposed to be the eyes and ears of the United States in the world, not within our borders. Morell also testified to Congress committees, to congressional committees, that it was the Biden campaign that orchestrated the letter to discredit stories about the Hunter Biden laptop. Morell sent the draft letter to the PCRB and wrote on October 19th, 2020, quote, this is a rush job as it needs to be out as soon as possible. Why? Because the 2020 election was coming. Morell told the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees the PCRB approved the letter as written the same day. Another former senior intelligence officer told Fox News Digital that the PCRB review process could range from hours to months, depending on the length of the document being cleared and whether there are any elements that are questionable. And if you're helping get rid of Trump, and you're potentially going to be their boss after that happens, you can get it done the fastest. That's what looks like happened here, said Chris Porter. In a statement to Fox News, the CIA rejected the idea that politics played a role in the PCRB decision. Political considerations, here's the quote. Political considerations play no role in the CIA Pre-Publication Review Board's established process to determine whether information submitted by current and former officers contains classified information. The PCRB is composed entirely of staff officers who conduct the reviews. This is intellectual dishonesty. This is disinformation from the CIA. That the CIA would have anything to do with a letter written ostensibly by 51 former national security officers, including former members of the CIA, has nothing to do with the PCRB. Those people are retired. Those people are private citizens. That the PCRB had any kind of input regarding anything having to do with what was in that letter is preposterous. It is political. It is a political use of CIA personnel before an election to discredit what we have now learned to be absolutely true. Voters who have been talked to by, granted, biased news outlets, Fox News, said that they would have reconsidered their vote had they known that the Hunter Biden laptop was not a Russian disinformation gimmick. No, it was a political one. Now, would it have changed the election? Probably not. Did it affect the election? Most certainly. And the question is simple. I'll ask you. Should the CIA have anything to do with American elections? Yes or no? And tell me why. 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Right on the chat room. Tell me. This is epic misconduct. This is the deep state in action. If you are a CIA officer doing your job to try to gather information from around the world to keep America safe, you're doing your job. If you are a CIA officer that has anything to do with, up to and including, a letter that is outside the purvey of the CIA, which happens to be former national security officers writing an open letter to the people of the United States, you are not doing your job. You are playing politics. That's all there is. But as we have seen, executive branch agencies politicized during the Obama administration are still playing politics. Still. That's how you destroy the country. When people say these people are trying to destroy the country, well, that's one of the ways you do it. Right there. And so the CIA can say all they want to. Political considerations play no role in the CIA pre-publication review boards, the CPRB. Political considerations play no role in their established process to determine whether information submitted by current and former officers contain any classified information. The PCRB is composed entirely of staff officers who conduct the reviews. They are CIA personnel. And by the way, well, now wait a minute, John David. Hang on a second. Shouldn't the CIA look at public information being disseminated by former officers? No. If those former officers take part in a concerted effort to release classified information, let's see, who would that be? Who can we come up with an example? Oh, yeah, James Comey, the former director of the FBI. What should happen is that those people who release classified information in an unauthorized way, who are former national security officers, should be sanctioned by the appropriate agency. But that's after the fact. Yeah, that's after the fact. And when there's information released by former national security officers that's detrimental to the United States, they're immediately swept up and thrown in jail. And all those people that are former officers know that, and they don't want to be swept up and put in jail. And so they're not going to take part in classified information. So once again, why is the PCRB having anything to do with this letter? Because the CIA is playing politics. Now, as far as the rest of this goes, I know I'm asking you to say, consider information and set aside that which you believe is unreal. I'm also asking you to consider this information and keep what you believe is real. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. The other day, Plainview Elementary School, a school in Plainview, Texas, became national news fodder for a sexual assault in one of the classrooms where the teacher was present. And the whole thing was memorialized on a school laptop. The student who did it, who actually videoed this sexual assault, was smart enough to put a password on it, but did not know that passwords, there are back doors into these pads that are used to record these things. We haven't seen the video. I don't want to see the video. I as a news professional, I wouldn't allow people to see the video. I won't. If it becomes available, I'm not going to show it to you on the Wells Report. Because it's child pornography. And at the time I reported the story, I said, we have morphed reproductive education in the U.S. first into sex education and then into having sex education. The kids are obviously sexualized, and that process continues to this day. The latest example comes from California. This is hard to report. A special needs student at a California high school was allegedly called a bigot by her teachers for mistakenly not using preferred pronouns, objecting to participating in a lesson about scissoring, and refusing to get undressed near male teachers. Marina Vivar signed her daughter Thelma Gomez up for a course on health and relationships at Glendale High School. She checked a box excusing her from being taught about anything LGBTQ+ or about sexual acts that were gay in nature, referring back to scissoring. During a speech to the Glendale City Council, Vivar said her decision to exempt her daughter was not respected by the school staff. She was taught about sex acts such as scissoring and using a female condom. When Gonzalez told teachers she should not be in the class, Vivar alleges that they called her daughter a bigot, intolerant, and homophobic. Those terms, Vivar told the council, were unfamiliar to her daughter and were not words the family uses at home. She added her daughter would not have known the words unless she learned them at school, and that her disability prevents her from coming across them organically. My teachers were going to send me to the principal's office when I told them that it was against my beliefs that I felt uncomfortable, said Gonzalez. Vivar said Glendale High's principal, Benjamin Wolf, conducted an investigation and concluded nothing happened. The lesson Ms. Vivar is referencing was a general lesson from the health textbook about making healthy decisions in your relationships. The teacher did ask Ms. Vivar's daughter to refrain from making inappropriate remarks in response to a reference to LGBTQ+ relationships. Quote, "We have investigated the interaction, have not found any evidence that inappropriate remarks, for instance, referring to the student as a bigot, were used by the teacher. We will continue to thoroughly investigate," unquote. Gonzalez said she also felt uncomfortable having to change for gym class. Quote, "I once got in trouble in the girls' locker room because I did not dress down in front of other people. There are male teachers inside the girls' locker room talking to Mr. Lewis or Ms. Lewis. Her office, which is inside the locker room, had her door open, and there were male teachers in the office. The teen added, I never wanted to see that. That's why I don't dress out for PE. I was scared. I was terrified because I was afraid of an adult male staring at me while I was changing. That's why I don't change." NAM called Gonzalez's recollection inaccurate, said that male teachers have no reason to be in the girls' locker room. Yeah, I see. Now remember, the girls' locker room is not the teacher's office. If the door is open to the girls' locker room, technically, the men are not in the girls' locker room. All they have to do is look out the doorway, and they can see into the girls' locker room. You see, propaganda isn't about what you put into some public information. It's what you leave out. Oh, these guys weren't in the locker room. What are you, crazy? We would never do that. Could they see into the girls' locker room? Oh, that's all the time we have for public commentary. Thank you. So, once again, here we are. We are sexualizing our kids at every turn. And strangely, they are reacting by having sex. in the classroom, at least in Plainview, Texas. How much of this will the American people tolerate? How much? There's an election coming up. It's time to do something different. Vote for someone else. Don't listen to the propagandists tell you that the person that you're voting for is some sort of arch criminal. That's all we have for the Wells Report today. God bless you and yours. Take good care. We'll see you again tomorrow. All right, my friends. Let's see. Yeah. All right, that's all we have. Thanks very much for another great day. I sincerely appreciate it. Like I said, we're rebuilding things. They will get better as time goes by. Okay, so God bless you and yours. Take good care. And I will see you again tomorrow for Monday, for another edition. I get to sleep in tomorrow. Wahoo!